Welcome back, folks, to the final edition of the regular season podcast for this year. It's your three-man crew once again as we head into the playoff push. Welcome back, Mr. Kamish, and not defending champ, but most common champ.
I'm gonna have to ban that, at least on the pod, because we're tired of hearing it. Um,
Do
but
something
thank
about it
you.
then.
I am gonna try to do my best. Something about it. Okay, this is gonna be my best shot this year. Even though last year was a very similar story. I was the one seed for a handful of weeks, looking like a strong team going into the playoffs, and then got absolutely wiped by the eventual champ. Looks like it could be a different story this year. Even though I'm actually less confident about my team going into the playoffs this year than I was last year.
Yeah, you didn't claim that it was this my year this year. So
Exactly, because I didn't even believe in my own team after the draft. Like, you had a question in the draft pod about like, did you go get your guys or anything? And I didn't. This was the first year where I did my research and I went based off of kind of metrics and numbers rather than like my gut or my guys. So, seems to be working, but there's a whole third of the season left, and that's what we're gonna jump right into.
Absolutely. So just quickly, I know we missed last week. Um, Colin, you and Johnny did end up clinching playoff spots heading into this past week. So how was it, sort of sitting there with a bye of sorts, not having to worry too much about the rest of the regular season?
Yeah, it was nice. The pressure was off. It was sort of a bye because I didn't have my best player, the number one player in fantasy, Jonathan Taylor. So Johnny, you can thank him for that. I won't take credit for the loss because it's not a loss when you don't have your best player. At this stage of the season, you know. But well done, Johnny. Again, a 130 number gets you the dub, gets you, a two seed. I mean, I'm up 100 points on him, so hardly a two seed, but um, he's actually got the better seed right now because as the playoff picture stands, the second round matchup, the number one seed is playing the winner of Cam and Trevor, the 2 and 3 position in points for. So if I had to choose, the two seed is actually the better seed going into the playoffs because that's the winner of, Eric and any one of those 10 and 12 teams, which I'd love that to be my second round matchup rather than again Cam or Trevor being the 2 and 3 points for teams.
I can't remember if we've talked about this in past years, and I also have no idea if this is even possible on Sleeper, but what would you guys think, just as an idea, in future years about for playoff matchups, the highest remaining seed gets to choose who they face in the next round? And, sort of like a call out your opponent, going down the list. So the one seed chooses from 2 through 8, who do you want to play? Assuming they don't pick the two seed then chooses from the remaining seeds. And, in the next round, if the one survives, the one chooses among the remaining teams who do they want to play in the semis.
I've heard of that. I've heard of it more commonly in like 16 playoffs where the first team you get a bye in the first round, um, and only the highest seed, number one overall seed, gets to pick, and then the second is obviously forced to pick the other one. I like the idea. Um, it would be interesting. That might change some of the 1 versus 8 dynamics that we've seen in playoffs past.
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as saying I like the idea. I definitely don't hate the idea. But we're at the next best thing because I'm pretty sure our playoff scenario is reseeding per round. So even though I just went through what my second round matchup potentially would be, that might actually not be the case because we do the reseeding. But all that to say, I think this league is due for, a playoff changing conversation, whether it's throughout this season and before the championship, or we actually do the off season pod that I've been trying to do for the past few years. We actually make that happen. We have kind of a round table, if you will, and go through some league changing rules. Specifically, the playoffs can be a pointed topic. But I mean, even Nick, you posed the question in the first pod this year about any rule changes, whether it's the dropped pass deduction, the tight end premium, and Cam, I don't remember what yours was, but any of these rule changes, I think we could force the issue with. And specifically with the playoffs, I'm really open to that because it's been now 2 years where we really haven't had major league rule changes, and I'm always open to improving the league and have everyone say on that.
Yeah, I like the idea. I like to mix it up a little bit because it's been more or less the same since we moved to sleeper a couple of years ago. I think we might have added an additional receiver maybe or at some point like 2 or 3 years ago, which I kind of like. I like deeper rosters in redraft because it makes you have to be active on the waiver wire and make lineup choices.
Agreed.
Right.
Where do you want to go next? You want to talk about the current standings or heading into this week or any other off the wall topics?
Let's start with the standings for now because a couple more teams clinch playoff spots after this week.
Yep. So Eric, Cam, and Trevor have locked up their spots. Rob and Troy were already eliminated, so that leaves 5 boys, 3 cups heading into this week for the remaining playoff spots. Kind of crazy that there's 4 teams at 10 and 12, separated by what is that? Like 70 points in total points for. So, I missed Alex there. I guess like 170 in total, but 4 of the. No, I was right. Alex is 12 and 10. Yeah, 70 points separating the 4 teams that are 10 and 12. So razor thin margins, as Cam was outlining in the text earlier today for those last 2 playoff spots, especially.
Yeah, I want to shout out Willie because I know we talked about my matchup with Johnny, but Willie's matchup with Cam to solidify himself still in the race going into this week 12, only winning by 2 points against Cam was huge. Obviously the median, they both got that, but beating Cam, that he solidifies himself as at 20 and 12 among 3 other teams. But I think that's huge for Willie because it would have been infinitely harder to make the playoff going into this week 12. So huge win by Willie there. Way to stay in it. And with Josh Allen doing Josh Allen things now at this point of the season, anything can happen. But I love to see this. This is exactly what I would have wanted. I mean, if we could have had a 12 team race in week 12, fine. A 10 team race in week 12 is the next best thing. And I love, and it's basically the playoffs. We can call it week 12. We can call it week 1 of the playoffs. This is huge. And I'm so ready for it. I find it fitting that they're all playing each other too. Love that. That's an interesting wrinkle that really keeps this thing wide open. And so Nick, I mean, you're one of these 10 and 12 teams. You have to play
Willie.
How do you feel? Where's your head at?
Not good. That's how I feel. There's no team I hate playing more in this league than Willie, because we've talked about it before. But like, if the Buffalo Bills score 30, I'm toast. And that's just the way it goes. I need Josh Allen to have a bad game. I need him to not run for 3 touchdowns. Which last year, I don't know if it was I think it was in the playoffs. I was playing Willie and Josh Allen put up a 50 burger. So I've been burned by Willie's Billies before, late in the year, and I'm pretty pissed about it. He hasn't set his lineup yet. Excuse me. This is my Michael Jordan flu game, so I'm battling here for you boys. He hasn't set his lineup yet, but when he does, it'll look a lot closer than Sleeper currently projects it to. Or maybe he doesn't. I would love if he goes with 1 wide receiver and no kicker this week. That would be huge. But I don't expect that from him. So yeah, not great. This isn't the position I wanted to be in. I was hoping we'd be a little bit more comfortable. We haven't found our rhythm at all this season. So we sit there below 500, but we got a shot.
I mean, you got to feel. good about having James Cook, though. And I know it's a Thursday night matchup against an aggressive defense, but that helps. They like to give him the rock and feed him, and take games and what have you. So that's a little bit of positivity there, I'd
Yeah.
say. Go ahead, Kim.
I was just gonna say Willie's currently 5-1 in his last 3 games. Um, I think he was 5-12 just 3 weeks ago, and he's kind of climbed his way back into the race. Still needs a little bit of help from a points perspective. I'm curious, Nick, because there are a couple of, I mean, essentially from my perspective, the teams within those 4 teams, within Jason, Josh, yourself, and Willie, the 2 teams that go 2-0 are advancing. If it becomes a 1-1, you've got to put your best foot forward this week and beat the median in order to really solidify yourself. Because if it comes down to a points forward tiebreaker, um, Josh and Jason are probably in, even though it is close. But 70 points is a lot of ground to make up in 1 week. So you got to kind of not only beat Willie but beat the median, so beat him pretty handily too. I guess what are your any thoughts on that? Seeing the other game, those 2 players are technically already in the playoffs. So what are your kind of thoughts on the points for differential and what needs to happen for you to advance?
Yeah, I mean the good news is I've saved some fab. And this is the kind of week where I think like if you start the right kicker, if you start the right defense, like that could be the difference between like making and missing the playoffs. So we're not gonna be spendthrifts this week. We're gonna go out and try and make some acquisitions for the roster, and we need to clean things up. So we're gonna leave nothing behind. We burn the bridges behind us, leave no stone unturned, all the different maxims you have here for the situation, because, it's win or go home, as you said.
Yeah,
Heard that. I love that. That's what we're here for. Um, I have a question though, and maybe you guys can clarify this for me. But mathematically speaking, because the 7 and 8 are playing each other and the 9 and 10 are playing each other, doesn't that mean only one of Jason and Josh can actually make it? Is there a scenario where this is the final picture, where Jason and Josh are the 7 and 8, and not and Nick and Willie are out of it?
But if the
Because it
loser of that beats the median and the winner of
hmm
our game loses to the
loses.
median,
Yep,
then they would both go 1-1, and then it would come down to who has more points for, which presumably would be the loser of their matchup that beat the median.
yep.
Okay,
That's
I
pretty
do
much
see
the
that.
only scenario.
Right. So
Yeah,
so interesting, and I mean that's unlikely, right? If you're winning your matchup, you're likely winning the median, and if you're losing your matchup, and not always. I'd be curious to see what the odds are there. I don't know if we can just whip that out. Obviously not on the pod, but by the end of the week, I'd be curious to see like what the odds are that of those scenarios. But I think Jason and Josh is a great matchup. Two solid managers, former winners. Um, let's see what the numbers look like. Yeah, I mean Jason's scoring 118 a game to Josh's 114, but Jason's picking at 89% to Josh's 80, almost 87%. So
So let me ask you, Colin, because you're sitting right now in the 1 seed. Worst case scenario, you're going to end up being the 2. I mean, your opponent is likely in these 2 matchups for the first round of the playoffs. Who do you want and who do you not want?
yeah, that's a good question. Um, I might just go with what it is right now. I want to play Willie, then Nick, then Josh, then Jason. I mean, it's based on points right there. You know, Jason is scoring the most amount of points between the 4 of you guys. His team has come into form the most recently with, Rasheed coming back, some of these injuries, even though he does have Brian Thomas out. It looks like Booty's back. He could be back. I just think he has, a lot of these, um, I guess you could say boom or bust, and they've been booming lately, where they were busting in an early part of the season. But Nick, I picked your team to be a contender. And while you do have a lot of injuries, McLaurin, Wilson's going to be out for the next few weeks. I still think you have a strong team. I mean, Brock Bowers just went for 38 the other game. I mean, it's a couple weeks ago. But, any one of these teams isn't anybody to overlook. I went in on Willie's team. I don't think he has the strongest team, but again, you said it with Willie's Billies, they can go off at any point. And then I might as well mention Josh's team, who just acquired a top 10 quarterback for seemingly nothing.
Should we hit on that now?
We might as well, but Josh isn't looking in a stronger position now that he has a decent quarterback throwing the rock, and a guy who just scored 30 points as an RB3. So, yeah, Cam, why don't you take us away?
Yeah. So this was actually a trade that was born this morning. I was just kind of looking through the sorry, we have some fans outside who are barking. This trade was kind of born this morning, and I didn't realize that Josh had essentially no quarterback. He had no QB2, and Justin Herbert's on bye this week. And I've kind of been in a position with O'Marion Hampton still being out that I needed another running back, especially if Jaylen Warren is going to be hurt. And I had some question marks at running back. And I knew that I wanted to get Woody Marks because I have him in another league. He got a lot of looks. He had like 18 touches on the ground. I think he had like maybe 7 catches or 7 targets at least in this past week, even though he didn't play very well. So I kind of saw it as a buy low. I have no use for Dak Prescott at this point. So I figured it was like, for me right now, Dak is kind of a nothing burger. I don't really plan on starting Dak in the future with Jalen Hurts at quarterback, even though that's kind of been, maybe had I started Dak this week, I probably would have won that game. But I kind of had to make a decision. I trust Jalen Hurts' schedule for the rest of the season more than I do Dak's. And I kind of want to take a shot. I mean, this is essentially, and I also knew that I have Bucky Irving in another league, and I've been kind of following his injury tracker over the last freaking 7 weeks when he never went on the IR. And I do think that there's a good chance that he comes back within hopefully this week, but probably certainly next week. So I just figured, let me take a shot. I like Woody Marks. I really like Luther Burden. I think he's finding a spot in this offense. That was kind of like if I could swing Luther Burden in this deal too, I think he can make a little bit of a splash in the last third of the season. So kind of got two guys that I wanted, got rid of a guy that I didn't really have much use for. And I wasn't so sure about Sean Tucker moving forward with that kind of busy backfield with Bucky coming back. So started about 9:30, 10 o'clock this morning, sent it over to Josh. It seemed pretty fair. I just kind of, without even kind of analyzing it, just sent it over to him in this form without the fab. And he was like, I need an RB2, especially if Josh Jacobs is out. So I added some fab in case he wanted to make a splash in the waivers tonight.
Yeah, I like it. I think it makes sense when you explain it from your perspective of not really needing Dak. When I first saw this, I felt like just the players on each side were a win for Josh. And that, is good management by him. He's in a playoff fight and I think made his team stronger, which is what you like to see, guys trying to do in the last week of the season, right before the trade deadline. But I can understand you're sort of dealing from a position of strength and, with an expendable guy, basically picking up, 2 pretty strong lottery tickets for the playoff run. I'm curious because your trades this season have been really oriented towards the playoffs, and that's come at the expense of your, position in the regular season standings. And I think that will, we'll know in a few weeks' time whether you will like rue those decisions or, whether that's going to end up, leading to another ring in New England. So.
Yeah. Colin, go ahead.
That was just gonna be a point I wanted to make this pod is like for the next 6 to 7 weeks, every week someone's heart's gonna be broken. Like after this week, we're gonna have 2 guys that probably were playoff caliber teams, not in the playoffs. At least the first week of every matchup, one team kind of shits the bed. And if you're scoring like 110 or less in the first week of the matchup, your chances of winning the matchup are like probably unbelievably low. So every week for the next 6, 7 weeks, we're gonna have broken hearts in this league and around the the United States because we're not the only league that starts the playoffs this early, I would imagine. But back to this trade specifically, I guess it does work out. I mean, on paper, no context involved. This seems like a wild trade. I mean, a quarterback for and a guy who just went for 30 for a couple guys who haven't really been doing much. Um, but both of you guys have some of these players in your starting lineup, right? Josh is starting both those guys right away, and Cam, you're starting Woody Marks, tomorrow night or,
Mhm.
or or Thursday night. So you wouldn't have started Sean Tucker or Dak Prescott this week anyway, right? So
Right.
you're
Right.
basically trading. I mean, short-sighted um way to look at this, but you're basically trading two bench guys for a starter at least 1 week into this trade. So
Yeah.
I understand that from a you know value win perspective, if you will.
Yeah. It's also kind of hard to trade quarterbacks in this league as one QB redraft. Like a lot of guys, there's some pretty decent depth on waivers. Um, but to be fair, I mean, look at it this way: like Sean Tucker just dropped 36 on the Buffalo Bills, and Woody Marks plays the Buffalo Bills on Thursday night. So I, there are some pretty tough games ahead. They play Indy, they play Kansas City, but then they play Arizona, Vegas, and the Chargers in the semifinals and finals of this game. So of the season, I should say. So, I thought it was a good opportunity to buy low on who I presume is the lead back. I mean, he's gotten incrementally more touches since week 7. So I think it's just kind of call my shot, take a flyer. I got to have somebody to hold me over with RG Harvey being out this week and then O'Mara Hampton coming back hopefully in week 13. But I kind of like where my team's at. This is the first time in the last probably 4 or 5 weeks where I'm like, okay, feel solid with my starting lineup. And I do have some bench depth to plug in case somebody else gets hurt. So, um, I used a couple of trade calculators when analyzing trades and a couple trade and a couple of the tools that said it was a fair trade, like straight down the middle. Um, but then in a couple other ones it said it kind of leaned my direction, especially if I have no use for Dak. So I kind of like that. And this is kind of just a get my guy in week 12 rather than the draft.
And Cam, while we're focused on your team and your perspective here, we talked a little bit about the potential 1-8, 2-7 matchups, but you're right in the middle here. Your potential playoff opponents could include anyone like Eric, Trevor, Alex, probably being the three most likely. How do you feel about those teams, and what would be your preferred matchup and your preferred avoided matchup?
I feel like I was actually texting Eric maybe yesterday. I feel like we don't talk a lot about his team, but he's played as well as every other team with the exception of Johnny and Colin this whole season. Um, I think if I had to choose, I would rather play Alex. I think his team just has some question marks right now. Um, I kind of picked him to actually miss the playoffs, which there's a very, very small chance that he does. I think from a points perspective, I don't think it's likely at all. Um, but I think he's probably the weakest opponent out of the three with Eric, Trevor, and Alex. Um, so that's probably my answer. But I don't really want to face any of the three, to be honest. Like they both have had weeks where they popped off. I think Alex scored the highest amount of points this past week, dropping 140. I just gotta hope that my guys are healthy, come week 13, and I can put my best lineup out there. What about you, Nick? You could be as high as probably the 7. So you could play the 1 or the 2 between Johnny and Colin. Who would you rather face?
It's a good question. I want to play the best teams. So I want to play whoever ends up being the 1 seed. I think at this point, it's probably fair to say like Collins' roster is probably better. He's 100 points ahead and points for. So like I want to play Colin. I think it would be fun if I make the playoffs as the 8 seed and I'm playing the 1 seed. Like at that point, you're playing with house money. There's like nothing to lose. So it's fun like seeing the seed sweat and see, if Brock Bowers scores 30, like, is he like, oh my God, am I about to lose as the one seed again? Like I think that would be more fun than, being the seven seed. And even if you knock off the two, it's like not, it's not nearly as crazy. So long way of saying I'm happy to be in the dance. I'm happy to face either of them, but whoever winds up being the one seed, I'm kind of hoping I get them.
Yeah, I mentally couldn't afford that to be the one seed and lose in the first round for 2 years in a row. That's mental warfare for sure. But the only thing worse than that, as far as a mental breakdown is concerned, is being 3-17. Excuse me, 3-19 for two of these teams in the league. I think we should take a moment to touch on these teams.
Agreed.
They put up a fight. They did what they could. It was kind of mostly out of their control. We all agreed that they had solid drafts. We understood the risk that they took. Um, but to be 3-19, and it's really injury based, right? I mean, you can't really see all the guys that have been dropped throughout the season. But there's injuries involved, and I guess some trades. But any thoughts on these teams that are now the two favorites for karaoke and or rival tattoo?
You go ahead, Cam.
Um, I mean, what can you say? I mean, it's not for lack of trying, especially for Troy's team. I know he was very active on trades this year. He dealt with probably more injuries than most teams have dealt with this year, particularly like within the same running back rooms. Like he had what felt like four deep Chargers and Cardinals running backs, and he still couldn't really figure out how to get the healthy one, even coming up on this week too. Um, and then Rob's team, you look at his roster: Lamar, Rico, Saquon, Cortland Sutton, Chase Brown, Ricky Pearsall. Like, if you show me that roster in the beginning of the year, I would say that he's certainly a playoff team. But then you look at the rest of his receiving room, and I know that I've harped on this many times in this pod. It's just it leaves more to be desired here. Um, I don't love starting Trey Tucker, even though he's ostensibly the receiver one in Vegas, and then Darnell Mooney. I'm not even sure why he's even rostered in this league, but it's just I think it's kind of the tale of two teams. I think Troy made a lot of moves, and I know we've urged Rob to make some more moves, or even maybe bigger moves. I know he made a couple trades this year, but I think it was kind of the tale of Troy's lack of fortune and maybe not winning out on some of the trades that he did make, and then Rob's maybe lack of activity and not making enough trades. That's kind of my thought with those. But at least they're both 3-19 together. It would suck if one of them was, 2-22 on their own.
Yeah,
All
two and
right,
22 is a tough look.
I have a stat for you guys here based on these two teams. So we've talked about in the past that 130 points is sort of the barometer in a week for a good week. Where would you set the barometer for like an okay week or a bad week at?
I mean, okay is 115 to 120 and above. Bad
Okay.
is 110 and below, right? I
Okay.
mean, you got to put up more than 109. 109 sounds weak.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, I second that.
Okay. How many times we've played 11 weeks? How many times this season do you think Troy and Rob have both scored triple digits?
Like combined, like both of them individually combined.
Like each of their teams has gotten above 100 points. How many weeks do you think that has happened where they both got above 100 out
I
of
don't
11?
even think I don't even think either one of their teams has scored over 100 points in more than half of the games. So
I might say
neither
even
team
less.
has scored 6 games of 100 points
I might say
or more.
less. I might say it's
Right.
like three for both of them.
Yeah,
Colin, you want to wager?
I'll take the over on that. I'll go 5. I think they've each scored 4 or 5 games the whole, through these 11 weeks of 100 points or more. So
There have
I'll take 5.
been there have been two occasions this season that both teams have scored in the triple digits in the same week. One of them was their
Oh, in the
week
same
seven.
week.
Yeah, one of them was their week 7 Turlet Bowl where they faced off against one another, which Troy took down 139 to 110. But I think week 2 or week 3. I'm just going back to it. I was just looking at this. Uh, no, it wasn't week 3. Week I don't know where the other one was. There's one other occasion where they both scored. It was week 4. No, week 5. Sorry, week 5. Rob scored 147 and Troy scored 116. Week 5 and week 7 are the only times this season that they've both been in triple digits. So it has been a very tough go because we just talked
Yeah.
about 109 as the barometer for a bad week. And there's only been 2 times that they've even gotten over 100 at the same time.
And neither one is averaging over 109. Troy's at averaging 106, and Rob was averaging 108. They didn't really help themselves with their manager efficiency. They're both bottom of the league, 85% and 86%, whereas most people are in the 88 and above, with Johnny at 91%. So,
Where would you
there's not
set
a lot of
if you had to
positivity.
set a percentage chance that one of them is singing karaoke? What would you set it at? We know one of them is going to be in the, well, I guess we don't know that one of them is going to be in the toilet bowl, but it seems likely because they're likely going to be facing the 9 and 10 seed. You would expect it's unlikely they both win. But what would you say the odds are that it's one of those two teams as opposed to the whoever ends up 9 and 10?
Got to be above 50. I don't know if it's 75%. 3/4 chance that it's one of those two teams. Maybe it is that high. Um,
That kind of felt like the number to me. That's what I had in mind.
75%.
Yeah.
That is these two teams. Yeah, I would say so.
Or that one of these teams loses the toilet bowl and is singing karaoke.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that number. I mean, looking at Troy's team, I mean, it's strange because I see guys on his roster that I like. Like Nico's been balling. George Pickens is wide receiver 2 on the season. I guess Bo Nix has kind of underperformed. Quint John's kind of slid the last couple of weeks, but yeah, I think it's likely. I'd be curious to see if they actually follow through with the punishment.
I believe in them. I think they would.
I hope so too. I mean, part of the question is like, do they want to stay in this league? And I think they do. Like fantasy football isn't kind to everybody. Um, but it's not even almost about fantasy football at that point. You're just playing for the camaraderie. You're playing to be part of a brotherhood. And for that reason alone, I'm doing the punishment every day of the week. I'll go 2-22 again if I have um, to prove that I'll do a punishment fucking day
You
one after
won't.
the
You
championship.
won't.
I shouldn't bait the odds like that. But no, I think these guys they love fantasy football just as much as the rest of us. Um, a tough season's tough, obviously, but there's always more to look forward to. It's also the NFL. Like NFL is king. There's nothing like this in any other sport. Um, and a part of this, like Cam says, get your guy. Like you have your even if you're a Dolphins fan and you hate your own team, you're gonna like some of these players, right? Like who doesn't love watching a Saquon Barkley game where he's back hurdling, a defender? That didn't happen this year, but it's still Saquon Barkley. Who doesn't love Lamar Jackson running for almost 200 yards on a random team? Um, you
Both
know,
on Rob's team, by the way.
I mean, who doesn't love George Pickens being a wide receiver 2 on the Cowboys, being wide receiver 2 in fantasy football? That's unbelievable. Um, I think this does maybe open your eyes a bit. Like for me, when I went 2-22, my next year, my entire strategy changed. I had to get out of my head and be like, okay, maybe I like these guys, but maybe I like these guys for the wrong reasons. So let me do this. if this doesn't change your draft strategy, your outlook on a season going into a season, I don't know what will. So hopefully next year they can, do something differently and turn this thing around. Um, but you know, it is what it is, and um, it'll be interesting to see who those two teams are playing for that consolation bracket, and then who might end up being the toilet bowl winner. Who would you say is the favorite between those two?
I think Rob, I would still take Rob to beat Troy, especially because Rob's still got a decent amount of fab. He can make some, late acquisitions, get a defense, get a kicker. And those can be fine margins as we talked about in short matchups. So I think I would make Rob the favorite to win and Troy the favorite to end up singing.
I'm gonna go contrarian here. I think I have more faith in Troy's guys than I do in Rob's guys, top to bottom. Um, he was the guy I think in the post draft preseason video that I picked to make a run for the championship. So I still have faith in this guy. Still like his lineup, even though they haven't been kind to him. I also, between us chickens, I do get the sense that Troy is a little more involved in the season at this point than Rob is. And I think that, in seasons past, we've talked about how effort and interest goes a long way, especially in the toilet bowl when, you're not really playing for much with the exception of not singing or not doing a punishment. We've seen that kind of bite Jason in the ass in years past and things like that. People who are less involved as the season goes on. I think Troy's involvement is his X factor here. I think he's still going to be trying to make some moves. Although I don't know if he has any fab left.
He's got 10.
10 fab. I think he's going to stretch it. I think he goes. I think he loses in the first round to whoever's a playoff snub, but I think he wins that last game.
Let's also make some predictions. We talked about 5 teams for 3 spots on the playoff bubble here. I'm happy to go first and stick my neck out there. I think Alex is safe. I think he gets in. I have Jason beating Josh, and Jason gets in. And I have myself with a 1-1 week, but it's enough on the point differential to get past Josh for the eight seed.
You got to outscore him by 12.
I can do it. I believe in myself.
Or he loses to the median, blah blah blah.
He
But
scored
12,
like 11 points last week, so I'm confident that I can do that this week.
yeah, wait, that's right. He did score the second worst point total in a week in this league's history, right? It was 57.
57. Yeah. His
We
only
got
double digit performance was from Jake Elliott with 11.
Josh Elliott.
Oh, yes, excuse me. No, sorry. Jake Joshiot, actually.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wait, we kind of went in on Willie's team when that happened. Let's give it to Josh right now. Let's all look at how bad his team is. I mean,
Yeah.
he's still starting 40-year-old Alvin Kamara, so that's tough. And he's about
Yeah,
to start a running back 3 against the #1 rushing defense in the league.
he got a new quarterback. He's done with Herbert. Calvin Ridley's hurt. He's off the team.
Yikes. And he's been starting Cooper Kupp, who's been basically playing golf all year.
Yeah, that also kind of informed the trade with me and Josh too. I knew he needed to make a change. Had one of the second worst week in the history of this league. I think he needed to make a change. So I think he's certainly able to score more than what we deem as a bad week at 109. And for some reason, he still is Marvin Harrison and starting, even though I'm not sure if Marvin Harrison even plays this week. I think he needs to make a change there. I think he has the chops to beat Jason. But, I mean, if you look at Jason's matchups, I mean, there's a lot of green there. A lot of green up and down the board. So he's going to be fighting a little bit of an uphill battle. And it doesn't look like he's going to know much after the 1 p.m. window. He's got Amon-Ra St. Brown and Cooper Kupp, and then Theo Johnson, and the rest of his guys are playing in the afternoon. So I think he's going to have a lot of ground to make up on Sunday afternoon because pretty much everybody in Jason's team is playing at 1 p.m., the exception of Jerry Judy and Brandon Aubrey. So it's going to be a steep uphill climb for the Joshes.
Yeah, no, it's not looking good for him. I mean, even Jason's bench is better than Josh's starting lineup. Marvin Harrison might have the worst case of appendicitis ever. If he's going to be missing several weeks because of this. I thought you just get that shit removed and you're good next day.
Meanwhile,
got stitches.
Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing on a broken hand this week. So,
Right. So,
Josh, if you're listening to this, I have Michael Wilson available in the trade block. So,
Cam, how many teams have you traded with this year? I feel like you've made the most trades.
I did one with Nick, 2 with Troy, 1 with Josh. I think that's it. Oh, 1 with Eric, technically in the draft.
Okay, that's got to be the most trades of any team, I would say. I would guess.
I was curious if seeing that trade happen on a Tuesday would potentially spark some more activity amongst the league as we get closer to the trade deadline. So I kind of hope so. I want to see some shit hit the fan.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm one for a trade most days of the week. I mean, that one year where I literally my objective was just to trade with everyone, and Alex, gave me blue balls pretty hard that year. I love a trade, but and maybe we bring this back to the buy, sell, hold segment. I've been holding, like I've been liking where my team has been performing. I'm usually good at cooking up a trade. I'll go to someone's team and be like, oh, I like this guy. I like this guy. Let me see what a package can do to like fit his needs, maybe. And I just haven't been able to do that this year in this league. So holding has been my best position, I feel like. Even with like Charbonnet and Walker, like who would want both of those guys and you don't know who to start? I do. I'm actually good not knowing and making the wrong call. I started Charbonnet. Of course, Walker goes for 90 and a touchdown. That's how it works. But I have that firepower when I need to. When one or the other goes down, there's no way. On first thought, maybe you would want to trade that. But I find value in that, and holding has been my best position. Even Josh texted me the other day, like, would you be interested in a trade? And I just said potentially. Period. Send me something and I'll see if there's value there. But I've had a really hard time this year specifically finding value in a trade. Excuse me. And the one trade I accepted was sent to me. And we all know what that was. So Nick, I don't know where you were at with trades this year, but that's where I kind of was. I couldn't really cook up that much as I have in years past.
yeah, I didn't make a ton this year. I had a couple trades, a couple during the draft as well, which is one of my hallmarks. I love moving up and down the draft board. But yeah, it wasn't a huge year. By the way, this is completely unrelated to trades or to who's going to make the playoffs, which I want to get your predictions on. But I was just like perusing Sleeper while we were doing this. Did you know that Juwan Johnson, the tight end for the Saints, was college teammates with Tyler Shuck? I did not realize that. He's been in the league for 5 years, but he was Tyler Shuck's college teammate. That's wild.
Yeah, I think when Shuck was at Oregon, if I'm not mistaken, because I think Shuck started there.
That's right.
And that's crazy.
How did Sleeper tell you that? Where on Sleeper did you find that?
You have to click on the college teammates tab. You don't know that tab?
No, it's invisible on my on all my platforms.
I can see everybody he played with in college for every player. No, the latest news is about him potentially emerging as a viable tight end option, and it talks about the chemistry he's building with his former college teammate Tyler Shuck.
Okay.
That blew my socks off.
Gosh.
So sorry, I just had to share that. That was breaking news for me. All right, I want to get you guys on the record. 5 teams, 3 spots. Who's in? Who's out?
Yeah, I mean, we just looked at Josh and Jason's matchup. I'm going Jason. There's no way Josh pulls that out. I just can't see it. Like I said, his bench is better than Josh's starting lineup. Um, he is no longer the deep bench Josh's, and we might have a tough time remembering the Joshes this year after this week.
Okay, so Jason's in, and then within Nick and Willie, who else is in?
Let me go ahead and look.
Or does Josh get in? He could lose but
Uh,
still make the playoffs.
no, Josh doesn't deserve to get to the playoffs after a 57-point week. And for that point, I'll give it to Nick because Willie doesn't deserve a playoff spot with a 48-point week. That is a tough look, man. I mean, his like fifth round pick. No, I don't know. I don't know where he went. Keon Coleman. That man is not playing games for disciplinary reasons, but he's dancing on the sidelines before the game as if he's, their stud player who's on a personal buy or something. It makes no sense. I'm glad I got rid of him in Dino. Um, but no, yeah, Willie's team has his only player that he has any faith in should be Josh Allen, and he can't score 45 a week. Kittle's been looking good, and he's got the chemistry with Purdy. But the rest of his players, like mid level players, not able to have the big games. Whereas Nick, you do have those big game players. You have CeeDee Lamb, you have Brock Bowers. James Cook's a top five receiver or running back. He's number 6 running back. Jared Goff's got to find some consistency again, and you're set. I mean, you still have a playoff caliber team. I cannot say that about Josh and or Willie.
Yeah, it's actually kind of embarrassing that Willie beat me this past week while starting Keon Coleman in his flex. Didn't even realize that was the case. Anyways, I am going to be the contrarian thinker here. I think Josh has the chutzpah to beat Jason. I think Jason also loses to the median. And then I also think that Nick handily beats Willie. I think this is Josh Allen's maybe come down to earth moment, kind of similar to how he played against the Dolphins a couple weeks ago. So I think it's going to be Josh in the 7. Actually, no, I think it's going to be Nick in the 7 and Josh in the 8. I think Nick has a big week this week.
Love that.
Well, wasn't Josh the 8 last year, and he beat a specific someone and then ended up winning the whole damn thing?
I think Josh was the 2 last year, if I'm not mistaken.
No, because I lost to him in the first round, I thought.
No, you lost. Oh, did you? You might have. Hold on, let me see. No, I was the 8 last year, and I beat you in the
Oh,
first
fuck
round.
off, man. God damn it.
Fun fact, the 8 seed, since we moved to 8-team playoffs in 2022, the 8 seed is 3-0 in the first round. So, Nick,
Yeah.
you might be kind of sitting pretty here, not playing so much with house money. The 1 seed might be playing with house money at this point against an 8 seed.
There you go. Look at them apples.
I don't love that because I'm going to be missing Drake May in week 14, and that's week 2 of the round 1. I might be starting Justin not on the field in week 14. So there's a few quarterbacks out there that are on the waiver wire that I don't know if other teams need right now, but I might have to pick up the quarterback for week 14 now. But we'll see.
You could have got Dak, man.
It looks like your top option is Tyler Shuck based on week 14 projections right now.
Who's got Jordan Johnson? Let me get that.
You want the stack?
Yeah, I want the stack.
I'm just saying, I have Jared Goff and Daniel Jones. I don't need them both. So,
Dan Jackson Dart went on the block earlier today, too.
This is true. The phenom.
He doesn't have brain cells right now, so
he doesn't need them to run the ball in.
So should we do a playoff prediction with the teams that we chose to fill out the rest of the playoffs?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go first. So I'm projecting not much about the rankings are going to change outside of the 7 and 8 seed. Although I know Colin probably wants to be the 2 seed and not the 1. So I think Colin is going to play Josh in the first round. I think this is the first year that that the 1 seed advances to the second round. That means Johnny and Nick in the 7 seed. I think Nick actually advances too. I think that Johnny, we've kind of talked a little bit how he could be potentially fraudulent, not the second highest point scorer in the league as a 2 seed. So I think that Colin advances and then Nick advances. And then that leaves Eric playing Alex. I think I'm going to take Eric here. I've been a little low on Alex's team over the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to take him. And then it's a birthday bowl rematch in the first round. I think I'm praying Marion Hampton has 2 legs this week. So I'm going to take myself against Trevor. And then in the reseed, that leaves Colin and Nick in the semis versus me and Eric in the semis. At this point, Drake May will be fully back. If Garrett Wilson is healthy, I think that's an X factor for Nick. I'm not sure if he's going to be healthy by the time the second round rolls around. If he is, give me Nick. If he's not, give me Colin. And I don't know if he's going to be healthy, so I'm going to have to go with Colin there. And then I'm going to take Eric to beat me in the semis, and then Colin and Eric in the finals, and then I think Colin takes it home.
I like it. I'll run through my bracket. So I have me versus Colin in the first round. As much as I want to pull off that upset, I'm going to say I don't get it done. I'm going to say Colin breaks the trend and the 1 seed wins. Johnny versus Jason. I have Johnny advancing, but I think that one would be close. I'm with you, Cam, that I think that Johnny could be on upset alert in round 1. But I think he gets it done. 3 versus the 6, I have Eric versus Alex. And I think Eric advances. Maybe Alex's luck runs out in the first round of the playoffs. And I'm going to be very intrigued to see what happens in the birthday bowl. I'm going to take Trevor over 2 weeks. If it was a 1 week matchup, I might feel a little different, but I think the strength of his team over 2 weeks, I'm gonna take him. So then in the semis, I have Colin versus Trevor. That is a very tough semifinal. I'm gonna I'm gonna go with Colin. I'm gonna ride with the 1 seed, but I think that one will probably be the closer semifinal. And I also have Eric beating Johnny, so I have the same championship matchup. Um, I'll lean the other way just for a bit of difference here on the podcast. I'll say Eric beats Colin in the championship.
Interesting. Interesting. All right. Well, as we know, I'm taking myself. I don't care who the 8 seed is. I'm gonna break the trend. I have to, for my own sake, for the sake of this league, and if this league, means anything or has any credibility, the 1 seed's got to be a good enough team to take down the 8 seed, right? I mean that only makes sense. It's happened enough to be enough of it. Um, so I believe I picked Nick you to beat Willie anyway. So as the 8 seed, I'm beating you, Nick. I'm sorry. Not sorry actually. And then between Johnny and it would be Jason. I'm picking Johnny, even though he really didn't score that many points this year. I think he still ended up in fourth in points for.
Yep.
Yeah, fourth in points for. Um, so that record is definitely inflated. But as the 2 seed, I'm not sure his team is as strong as a 2 seed should be. But I'm still taking him over Jason over 2 weeks, right? I mean, the 2 weeks would suggest Johnny would win that, even though Jason's team is strong. He's got Derrick Henry. He's got a lot of firepower there. That could be a close one. Um, and then Eric and Alex. Yeah, I think Eric's the right pick. But Alex, he was strong at the beginning of the year. Then he's been kind of back and forth with points the past few weeks. But he's got a strong enough team to pull that off. But I think Eric's got enough. And then the birthday bowl. I'll say this before I go through the whole bracket, I guess. These are the only 2 teams I don't want to face. If I can do anything to avoid either one of these teams, I will do it because these are the only 2 teams that I think can actually beat me. with the way that my team is playing. Um, Trevor probably does have the stronger lineup, but will he make those lineup decisions correctly is a question in itself. And then Cam, all the trades that you made, with the end of the game in mind, will those pay off? Right? Like, is Omarion Hampton going to play next week or the week, or he even if he's not ready for week 12, he might be ready for week 13 and 14. But the Chargers haven't looked good. They lost both their tackles. Justin Herbert's getting hit left and right, and they just got absolutely thrashed by the Jacksonville Jaguars. So while Omarion Hampton is a talent, will he be a top 10 running back, which is what you would need for those last 6 games essentially? I don't know. So I'm taking Trevor. With that, it's me versus well, I guess the reseeding would put me versus yeah, Trevor. He would be the lowest remaining seed. So as the 5 seed, it would be me versus Trevor right away. And I just said that those are the only he would be one of the only 2 teams I would think could beat me. I'm gonna pick myself. That's how this works. So I'm picking me over Trevor, but between Eric and Johnny, who are good buds, by the way. The 2-3 matchup in a semifinal would be sick. I'd love to be a fly on a wall in their text message chain with the amount of zingers going back and forth between them, I would imagine. Um, I think Eric has the better team. So we're all picking the same finalists between me and Eric. And I'm picking myself, of course. Um, I have Drake May, the sophomore MVP. I'm curious to see who the last sophomore MVP was. It might just be Drake May breaking another record. I got Jonathan Taylor, the number 1 running back. I got JSM, the number 1 receiver, and I got Drake May, the number 1 quarterback. So um, if I didn't do it last year, I got to do it this year, and I'm picking myself. So
Two quick points I want to bring up about 2 playoff teams we mentioned. I know I texted you guys about this earlier. Trevor and Johnny have had a historically easy run to the playoffs outside of their total points for. They've played with good offense, but they have also had Trevor has the 12th most points allowed, so the best overall offensive that he's played against, and then Johnny has the 11th. So I just want to put some like a fraud alert out on are these teams legit? I know that they've played well, but I just want to keep that in mind when you get to the playoffs. The rising tide, you're playing on a whole different ball game. So just want to keep that in mind when we all pick our brackets here, because I think that some of these folks might not be as good as their record indicates.
counterpoint, while your defense you can't do anything about in during the regular season or fantasy football for that matter. Yes, Trevor has the least points against. That's fine. That's a matchup thing. That
By
means
100,
nothing for the playoffs.
by
Right,
100
I
points, by the
understand.
way.
He's second in max points for. So his team is potentially good enough to score all the points in the world, right? Whereas Johnny is down there at 5. So, that's where his manager efficiency is coming in. He's 5th in points for, but he ended up in, I guess, 4th for or excuse me, 5th in max points for, 4th in points for. He's making the lineup decisions, whereas Trevor isn't
Mm-hmm.
at the good rate. So fraud alert, yes, potentially, but I still think Trevor's team, like your team, is nothing to scoff at. They legit teams.
By the way, to answer your question, Colin, Google tells me 3 players have won the NFL MVP in their second season before: Kurt Warner, Dan Marino, and Patrick Mahomes.
I'll
That's a
take that.
pretty good
That's
list.
It's
yeah. Give
pretty
me that.
company.
Those are Super Bowl winning. No,
Not,
Dan Marino
not
didn't win a
Marino.
Super Bowl.
Yeah,
What about Kurt
but
Warner? Was
he did.
okay.
Yep. But I've heard of all 3 of those guys, so that'd be a pretty
You
good
heard of
list to
Drake
be
May?
on. I may have.
Hell yeah.
Wow.
Any final thoughts before we head into the final week of the regular season?
If it does end up being me versus Trevor in the birthday bowl. God, that'll be such a miraculous time. I know we've gone back and forth over the last couple of years. I think over the past 2 years, right previous to this year, we played each other twice. And the first game of the regular season and the last, I think is just another. Should that be the matchup? Looking forward to it, buddy. I'm excited to take back what is rightfully mine. The day that I was born, you can choose another day. Actually, I'll choose it for you should I win. But I'm very excited for that.
February 29th. Loser has to celebrate on February 29th. I think that's fair.
Legally change your birth date.
Yeah.
No, this is good stuff, man. Going into week 12 and it's wide open. I love this. This is what we play for. This is what, keeps us tuned in. It's such a random week, week 12, like these matchups. I don't even think there's probably a single divisional game. I mean, there's got to be, but like it's just a random week. And then the week after that is Thanksgiving, so we get some, Turkey Bowl games, we get some Black Friday games, and then it's, pretty much holiday season, but which is tough, right? All of our playoff games happen at busiest time of the year. It's tough to stay tuned. It's tough to, if everyone's traveling, if everyone's got a lot going on at the end of the year. But we all tune in. I know we do. We love this stuff. Whether you're in one league or 5 leagues, you're setting your lineups, you're checking the waivers. That's something we didn't touch on. The waivers. What are the waivers looking like? What is the fab situation looking like going into the last few weeks here?
There's not a ton in terms of available players. The highest trending is the Browns defense. Kirk Cousins is the next most trending. You got a few wide receivers and tight ends and things like that, but there's not there wasn't a big guy available in our league. Emmanuel Wilson and Michael Wilson would have been the two biggest ones, but Rob and Cam have them respectively. So we'll see. I still think fab spending could be relatively high, despite not a lot of good targets, given we're getting into the playoffs and teams who are on the bubble need to make certain moves, and that could inflate the prices. But we'll see.
Yeah. Of the 4 remaining teams that are 10 and 12, 3 of them have at least $60 fab, and then Josh has 14. So some big money to spend this week.
And he had 9 this morning when he woke up.
In that trade, actually, he was going to accept Dak Prescott and Sean Tucker for Woody Marks and Luther Burden, and I said, "I'll give you $5 because I love you." Just because.
It's an interesting rivalry, dialogue.
We'll see whether that comes back to bite you in the playoffs when you need a defense and someone can outbid you.
I see AJ Barner is available. Nick, are you still bartering for him? Is that still
Maybe.
something you? Oh no, you have Bowers. Yeah.
I might be rolling with 2 tight ends already in my lineup between the college teammates and Brock Bowers. So there's magic in New Orleans right now.
Not the most interesting, waiver wire week. I thought there was more to play with here. Even though the number 6 defense is available, someone needs a deep streaming defense playing against Geno 3-pick Smith. That'd be an interesting defensive pickup. And Kirk O'Bangs. Cam, I know you love Kirk O'Bangs. Kirk Thuggins.
God, if I had to start Kirk Cousins this week going into the playoffs, I might just end it all.
All right.
Cool.
Well, I think that does it. Good luck to all, other than the teams that I'm trying to beat to get in the playoffs.